Rick, somebody shared a news article with me today, something about your exonification here in Canada, maybe about you being able to come back. I'd love to get your comments or any details about this particular article, please.
Well, I read the article over. As usual, it was totally ludicrous. But anyway, apparently the charges, they are staying the charges, or whatever that means. But, it's like I said, I have no trust in the Canadian legal system or the government. But, I think I probably could return to Canada now and not likely be bothered much by them. But the only problem is how am I supposed to have my medicine? And I don't want anything to do with any of their stupid licenses. And so to me, returning home is hardly the answer. And the way it looks right now, I'm still finishing the last few details on the book. And possibly around the end of the month, I may come back to Canada for a couple of weeks to see my mother and friends and family. But beyond that, I don't think I'll stay there for any longer than about 2 weeks because I have other things to do in other countries. I've got that World Hemp Congress coming up in Slovenia in August. So I've got things to do here in the EU. And I don't really think the Canadian government is going to jump up and let me do what I do best. So I'll just keep traveling around the world until I find a country that does.
That's actually my point. I've been trying to make on Twitter and a couple other shares that I've done with this article is that perhaps it's a trap maybe in some way. Of course, as you mentioned, you can't have your medicine when you're here, so you will be non-medicated when you're here for whatever ailments you could be experiencing. All of us are experiencing so many other ailments, and they can all be, as you say, cured with this. And do you think, how do you think this was inspired by the government to make such a statement? Well, I guess it's just the Crown that's making this statement, but do you think there's any international pressure because of your work elsewhere? Because this truth is slowly leaking out, right?
Well, I don't have any doubt. There is pressure coming from certain people in other countries to some degree. But I kind of think what happened here was simply that, we have surrounded them with the truth, especially in the area where I live. And I mean, all of these lawyers and stuff that took part, in this kangaroo case, I mean, all of their friends and people they know, must be criticizing them for it. Because, what they're doing is killing people. So I think it was just mostly public pressure that did it. But another problem I would have actually with returning, the minute I go back to Canada, there's going to be thousands of people chasing me around wanting me to make the medicine. And, I've already been through this in Canada. And I've had enough of it. There's no sense in me trying to do that or even trying to help people because, it'd just be the same nonsense all over again. So all I can do right now is tell people to produce, grow and produce your own if possible. It's not that hard to do, that's for sure. But, I think this is maybe the first chink in their armor. The walls are coming down and they know it. So, in the coming months, this whole thing is going to fall in on them.
Definitely.
So, and in my opinion right now, if the Canadian government had a brain in their heads, they would stand up and apologize openly to the Canadian public for what they've done. And
right.
They would take me and turn me loose and let me do what I can do.
That's what I'm concerned about. That's what I was hoping that could happen. That's what I'm sure a lot of people at first glance when seeing this article are going to want, that you're going to come back and you're going to produce this oil and help everybody, especially from the effects of Fukushima, if they understand what's happening there. And then everything else in our society is based around this, death. We die. And we're dying of many different ailments, and this is a cure to quite a few of them, as you claim. And that claim just needs to be put to test. So many, and that's what you've been doing, right? Yes, no, absolutely, absolutely. But as we were speaking about before in our interview before, we're talking about public persuasion, public awareness, public understanding of a certain thing in order to get that public influence, so that it can be understood and accepted, so it's no longer directly attacked. Like you have been. And this being somewhat like thought of as a pardon, right, is not necessarily the win that everybody's looking for, or the answer to everybody's solutions, that Rick Simpson will come back and fix everything for them. Um, on this level of people producing their own stuff and you being far away, the whole hero personification of you doing it for them hopefully is being put away by most of the people who have, common sense. You can do this yourself. You should be doing it yourself. Perhaps the only problem here is that the public awareness isn't understood yet. It's not being put out in the mainstream media. I'm doing my best here from Grasshopper Media to interview you and get this truth out from this angle. There's many other social medias out there that I know are going to be interviewing you in the near coming future. I would like to personally help out in any way that I can. We miss you. Where are you from? What kind of legality are you dealing with? And also, if you could explain more about the Legion and just all that stuff that you dealt with that, because this is what people are going to be dealing with in their own communities if they start doing the same thing that you did.
Well, one of the first things I would say is stop. Anybody that supports the Royal Canadian Legion, you should stop, because they represent nothing but a beer bottle, and they proved it. So forget the Legion. But I don't know. Coming back, it's hard after all this time being away to even imagine trying to live in Canada again, and especially under the situation I am, because everybody will be, a lot of people will be coming at me in interviews and things like that. But, I don't see the answer. Nothing's happening. There's been no government offer, for me to go ahead and do, what I do. And so what, like to me, it's like big deal. I can come home, but I can't do anything, to help myself or to help anybody else. The government's still got their laws in place. So what am I supposed to do? Really, I think it's up to the people now. The Canadian people have to stand up and make their governments aware, provincially and federally, that they've had enough of this nonsense. People have been dying for decades, and to me, it can all be brought to an end. And we can turn Canada into something that we can all be proud of again, instead of the monster it has become.
Well, the size of the landmass that Canada has, we could be literally growing enough agricultural food for the rest of the world if we were run properly. It's unfortunate that this government we call the Canadian government isn't organized in that fashion to be doing a GDP that's actually exporting enough stuff to, there's so much that's misorganized in all of this, and it's just misunderstanding of a lot of things. So people growing
But
their own stuff and go ahead.
they go on, like, they're pretending, okay, well, look, like we're going to pardon, Rick Simpson. Well, the question right now is Rick Simpson going to pardon them?
That's right.
You can take it to the bank that I'm not.
There you
You know,
go. Excellent. So,
I've seen what they've done, and the numbers of people that have died are horrendous, and they're responsible.
and
So,
you're not
it's
missing
not
the
up to
point.
them to pardon me. It's up to me to pardon them.
That's right. And accepting a pardon in any way would be an admonition of guilt in some way. And that's, just like the marijuana itself. When did it become criminal? When did it become decriminalized? And why do we want it legalized if it's the same as an apple tree, right?
Well, like I said, who had the right to outlaw it in the first place? And why did all these governments since 1923 stand behind that law? It's corruption right from beginning to end. And it has to come to a halt. I mean, we've got to save this planet. And the only thing that can do that is that hemp plant. And like I said, grow it everywhere, fill the prairie provinces full of it. And the amount of food we could produce from that plant, and energy and medicine, it's just endless. And like I said, we have to be truly insane not to be using this.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to have a talk with you here. Post hearing that news article there this morning. We'll definitely keep in touch. I'd like to do another interview with you about more specifics about the court case and all that sort of stuff. And is that posted online, all the specifics about your court case?
Well, no, there was never really much come out. I mean, if the newspapers had openly written what the judge had said during my sentencing, I probably would be a great deal different right now, because, he stated that I wasn't a criminal. He also stated that all the scientific evidence was there to back up everything I was saying. And he also stated that I had many patients to back up, my position. But that was never put in the papers.
And there's
To
no
tell the people.
there's no
You know, on
publication
top of
ban, is
that,
there?
how can they call somebody that is healing people and saving lives? How can they call? You know, they've labeled me a criminal. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I will never ask the Canadian government to erase my record. You know, they're the ones that gave it to me. If they want, you know, if there's any decency in them, they're the ones that should erase it.
Do you think perhaps maybe this article might be coming out at a time when the government, as you said, you had heard some rumor that the government, of course, wants this to come out through the medical system and not through yourself kind of thing. You know, they want it to be done through research and all that sort of stuff instead of the actual testimonials that have been coming through on this.
Oh, Max, if I hadn't have done this, do you think that these researchers would be making all this noise they're making now? You know, it was run from the Cure in our website. Yep. They've got this underway.
Yep. Start asking the questions.
I honestly, you know, I would hate to, you know, I would hate to think if actually if I hadn't stood up and did what I did, I would hate to think where we'd be right now. But now, due to all this ruckus we have on the internet and all over the world about this issue, and all these drug companies want to produce hemp medicine, well, it kind of tells you something. So, in my situation, I mean, for me to go back, if I went back to Canada and they tried to arrest me and put me in jail, I mean, the Canadian government would look like first-class fools after what they've done. So I don't think they'll probably bother me, but as yet, they're not making any offers that I have any interest in.
Excellent. Well, it's good to get that on the record, and we'll be posting this on grasshoppermedia.ca. And thanks for joining us today. And if you have anything, if you need any more help, and you can check out all the updates at phoenixtears.ca. This is
yes, that's our website. And
there you go.
We're doing what we can, but there's just Yindrich and I, and believe me, it takes a lot just to stay up with this. You know, keep up with the emails and everything else that's going on. You know, I get a fair bit done myself, but Yindra, he seems to do most of the work, and I don't know how he keeps up with it all.
That's it. Well, when it comes down to a cure for cancer, maybe we can all pitch in, and we'll meet you in the middle and help everybody.
Let's hope so, brother.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
Okay, Max. Good night.
Take her easy.
Okay.